The 2016 Olympic Games in Rio are well underway, and I think it's a good time to talk about some disturbing facts. From dead bodies littering the beaches to drug lords, today we'll be counting down 5 disturbing facts about Brazil. Number 5. The Olympic Village is built over a mass grave of African slaves. During the late 1800s, Brazil had millions of slaves toiling in mines. Many of these slaves died and were thrown in mass graves. People who were descended from these slaves made communities, which they called quilombos. The Olympic Village is built over one such community, previously called Cameroon Quilombo. The community was descended from slaves that worked in the sugar mills there. Brazil has a tough time with its history, and its history of slavery is often not taught much in their own country. Brazil imported the most African slaves and was the last country to abolish slavery. People feel there is a bit of shame in that, and hence Brazil doesn't bring it up much. There are over 3,500 quilombos in Brazil, and people descended from the slaves have a constitutional right to claim the lands that their ancestors lived and worked on. Unfortunately, many of these lands are under attack by real estate developers. When developers came to take over the Cameroon Quilombo, they cut down many century-old trees and got rid of the remains of houses where slaves lived and the old sugar mill that they worked at. They completely cleared the area and built condominiums for the Olympic Games. Number 4. Corruption and drugs are a major issue in Brazil and was one of the contributing factors in the FIFA Cup riots in 2013. Police corruption in particular is a very pervasive problem in the country, with gangs often among the ranks of policemen, firemen, guards, prison guards and members of the military. One case of police corruption happened just last year. A 17-year-old teen who was likely trafficking drugs for one of the many drug dealers who rule the slums called favelas was gunned down. The teen had surrendered and put his hands up, however the police shot him to death. They then took a gun, fired it in the air, and then put the gun in the dead teen's hands. This was all caught on video. In many slums, militia members who work for the drug lords often enforce curfews in order to traffic drugs. In one favela, they ordered a curfew, shutting down schools and stores. Men on motorcycles rode throughout the slum shouting that there was a curfew. Later, there was a shootout that ended with the death of a drug dealer. Drugs are a major problem in Brazil, and just weeks before the games, police had been trying to find drug traffickers. This led to several shootouts, with at least 10 people dead and schools being closed. Number 3. Brazil is known for their beaches. What they may not be known for is having body parts washing up on those beaches. This just so happens to have been a problem on the Copacabana beach where the Olympic volleyball games are currently being held. Just weeks prior to the games, there were reports of mutilated bodies washing up on the beach that would be hosting those games. It wouldn't be the first time that dead bodies were found on the beach. A bike path built for the Rio Games collapsed due to a wave. The sea carried the dead bodies to a beach and pedestrians continued to play football around the dead bodies. Perhaps it's just a common scene that they were just completely unfazed. Number 2. Brazil has a serious water and pollution problem. The air is so polluted in Sao Paulo that more people die from complications due to it than car accidents, breast cancer and AIDS combined. Though to be fair, AIDS is pretty treatable and not as deadly as it once was, but still, car accidents and breast cancer combined. According to the Institute of Health and Sustainability who conducted the study, over 4,600 people died just from breathing the air in the city. The air has 20 to 25 micrograms of particulate per cubic meter, which is twice the amount that the World Health Organization considers safe. From 2006 to 2011, air pollution alone may be responsible for as many as 100,000 deaths from respiratory issues. Brazil waters fare no better. Recently, a drug-resistant bacteria was found in Rio's waters, infecting 2 million and killing 23,000. In Copacabana, where the triathlon kicked off, 10% of water samples were infected. In Ipanema and Leblon, two very popular beaches, 50 to 60% of the water samples were infected. In Botafogo and Flamengo beaches, which is where the sailors will be competing, 90% of the water samples were infected. It's as if you are swimming and competing in more sewage. Actually, much of the water is indeed infected with sewage in Brazil. Number 1. Kidnappings are not new to Brazil. Brazil is one of the kidnapping capitals of the world, along with Mexico, India, Nigeria, Pakistan and Afghanistan. One of the most popular forms of kidnapping is called express kidnapping. This is when a person is kidnapped, usually at gunpoint, for a very short time, and are forced to travel to several banks and ATMs in order to withdraw all their money. This type of kidnapping is exactly what happened to a New Zealand athlete less than 2 weeks before the Olympic Games started. He was kidnapped by the ever so corrupt police and forced to withdraw money from 2 ATMs totaling $800. Another high-profile case of kidnapping is of Bernie Ecclestones' mother-in-law. Bernie is the CEO of Formula One and is worth about $3 billion. His mother-in-law was abducted in late July and was recently freed in early August. The kidnappers demanded $36.5 million. Virtual kidnapping is also quite popular in Brazil. This is when criminals call random people telling them that they have stolen away their loved ones and the only way to get them back is to send them money. At least with virtual kidnapping, no one is actually under threat of death, but victims can find themselves scammed out of quite a bit of money. If you like the video and like to see more, please like, share and subscribe. Videos will be uploaded every Friday.